Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's story is sharp, slow burning, and ends with surprise that won't let you sleep. Title: She laughed and said, "He never surprises me. That night, I gave her one she'll never forget." Let's get into it. We've been married 6 years. You learn each other's habits. The particular angle of a smile, the way a favorite song can make the whole room tilt into memory. You also learn the little cruel things that look harmless until they become knives. The casual comparisons, the jokes that cut deeper than laughter, the way someone says another name like it's an ode. That evening started like any other Thursday. Emma flopped on the couch after work, scrolling through her phone while I washed the dishes. She tossed the phone aside like it had offended her and laughed, a quick, small thing that used to be contagious. "You know Mark," she said without looking at me. Mark was a colleague she worked late with. He never surprises me. Always the same thoughtful little things. "I wish you'd do that sometimes." Her tone was half teasing, half confession. The words hit soft and found bone. I dried my hands slowly, tried on a smile I'd learned to wear in public, and said, "What kind of surprise?" As if I didn't already know. She shrugged. "Little things. A lunch at work, a silly note in my purse." He's attentive. "You're different in a good way, but not that. Not like a novelty. Not like Mark." She laughed again, the sound like someone else's memory. "He never surprises me," she repeated, and the words stuck. Not because they stung, they did, but because they sounded like an excuse she'd given herself permission to believe. I went to bed that night and couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry. Anger fizzled out into disappointment long ago. It was something quieter, clearer. The realization that she'd started measuring me with someone else's increments. It's one thing to be compared. It's another to be dismissed as predictable, as inevitable. I wanted to surprise her, yes, but not with roses and balloons. I wanted a surprise that made her see, truly see, the consequence of her indifference. So I planned. Over the next week, my life became a study in silence. I acted busy at work. Came home with a gentle tiredness that made Emma lower her guard. She left her phone on the kitchen counter sometimes, mid-update, assuming privacy was a right she'd earned. I let her assume 1,000 small harmless things. While she thought I was predictable, I reached out to people she hadn't expected. The barista who made her morning cappuccino, the receptionist at her office, the hostess at the bistro she loved. I told them exactly one line. "Tonight at 8, tell her the surprise is ready." I hired a discreet photographer and asked a friend with a videography knack to help me stitch together something sharp and clean. I booked the corner table at the rooftop where we'd once celebrated an anniversary. The place she'd once said was too romantic for ordinary surprises. What I wanted wasn't humiliation. I wanted a mirror. On the evening I chose, Emma walked in like she always did after work. Hair messy in that perfect way. A sweater that hung off her shoulder, a laugh prepped for someone named Mark. She paused when she saw the rooftop lights through the window and asked casually, "You remember the reservation?" As if she expected the answer to be, of course. I nodded, calm as glass. "I did." She smiled, surprised in a small, pleasant way she praised in strangers, but rarely in me. "You actually did. That's nice." We took the elevator up. The city spread beneath us like a grid of choices we'd once thought romantic. Now it felt like a stage. The hostess led us to the corner table. Candles were already lit, soft jazz filling the air. For a moment, a blink, she looked at me the way she used to, curious, pleased, and entirely unaware. Halfway through a shared plate of something forgettable, my phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. I stood, cleared my throat, and said I had something to show her. Her eyebrows rose. She glanced at Mark's name lighting up her phone when it vibrated on the table, then looked back at me with that smile that no one gets to keep forever. I asked the hostess to lower the lights. The band obliged, their saxophone folding into the hush. The screen at the corner of the rooftop flickered to life. Not the slideshow of our honeymoon photo she might have expected. For the record, I never pretended to be the man who created whimsy on demand. Instead, a simple headline ran across the screen in white on black. "The surprises you don't see." Emma's face shifted. Her laugh turned into a frown. I asked the cameraman, to press play. The first clip was ordinary. Mark at her office, hands full of flowers, leaving a note she reads and smiles at. The footage was candid, shot from the street, the kind of everyday intimacy you assume stays private. The second clip showed the barista handing a small bag to her as she dashed into work, a note peeking out. "Thought you'd like this." She blushed, delighted like someone on the inside of an inside joke. The third clip was a little darker. A dinner where Mark's hand brushed the small of her back as he guided her to a cab. They lingered in a laugh that didn't quite stay above the level of the crowd. Nothing overt. Everything saying more than it should. Emma's breath came faster. She covered her mouth with a hand like someone catching an echo. I watched her, not with triumph, but with the flat focus of someone unveiling a truth. Each short clip was nothing illegal, nothing dramatic on its own, just a pattern of attention she'd praised, the pattern she contrasted against my boring normal. Then, woven between these clips, I had added the little things I'd done, the private emails where I signed my love in ridiculous nicknames, the small breakfast I'd left in her car before big meetings, the 2 keys to the apartment I'd carefully carved into a charm and tucked into her purse on a chaotic morning. I let them stack like quiet testimonies. When the montage ended, the last slide came up, a single photo of me, not heroic, not dramatic, just me, holding a plain wrap box with a note that read, "To remind you that surprises don't have to be loud." Emma's eyes filled, not because of the footage, because of the juxtaposition. She had compared the flashy attention of Mark to the steady generosity of someone she called predictable. The surprise I'd given her was simple: to let her see both without commentary, to watch how the small unnamed kindnesses added up and how her laughter had softened for someone who wasn't her husband. She stood up, voice unsteady. "You did all this?" I didn't answer at first. I had rehearsed nothing. "You said he never surprises you." I said finally, "I wanted to show you what you've been calling surprises, and the other kind, the kind that stays when the lights go out." She swallowed. Regret crawled onto her face, honest and messy. "I mean—" "No," I interrupted softly. "You didn't mean to say it aloud. But you meant enough that you laughed and said it in front of people. Words matter, Em. They start surprises that change the shape of a life." She sat back down, the color draining. Around us, people who knew us, co-workers, friends we'd invited years ago, shifted, some with pity, some with the quiet curiosity of witnesses. No one shouted. No one threw plates. The surprise wasn't a spectacle. It was a reveal, a small, brutal clarity. She reached for my hand then, like reaching for a life raft. "Please," she said, "let me explain. He's just attentive." I finished for her. Just thoughtful. Just someone who remembers things you tell him. Yes, and I am someone who remembers other things. I'm the man who remembered you, too. Outside, a breeze moved the candles, a tiny disturbance that smelled like rain. Emma looked at the screen, at the recordings of herself smiling for someone else, then at me, whose offering had been cheap and earnest and utterly human. Her shoulders shook. I felt the old impulse to step forward and salvage the moment, the same impulse that had kept me patient for 6 years. But something different had grown in that silence, an understanding that some surprises aren't gifts. Some are consequences. She left that night with the rooftop's lights still blinking like guilty stars. She called later, apologizing, promising to change. I listened. I thanked her for the honesty of the laughter she'd once used as an excuse and told her something she needed more than a promise. "I gave you a surprise, so you could decide what kind of surprise you wanted to be." Weeks later, she came back, not because the surprise had humiliated her, but because it had made her choose. We talked, ugly and honest. It didn't fix everything. It didn't have to. A real surprise had done its job. It broke complacency. And sometimes, a surprise doesn't have to be fireworks or midnight plans. Sometimes it's a quiet film on a rooftop that shows you who you're becoming when you don't notice who you're losing.